and that you had a great day. All right, so for our lesson for today, we are going to be focusing on the grade 3 English lesson on prefixes and suffixes. All right, and before we go on to our lesson on prefixes and suffixes, you're going to aplusstudents.ca and you're going to log in with your username as well as with your password. So once we've logged in with our username as well as our password, then you're going to select the subject of language arts, and then we go to grade 3 because we're doing grade 3 English, which is language arts subject, right? And now, once we are in the grade 3 English or language arts subject, we are then going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of prefixes and suffixes. Oopsie. So prefixes and suffixes, right? So there's going to be a few lessons that we're going to focus on, right? And then we just basically going to see how far we are going to get with prefixes and suffixes. Whatever we do not finish, we will complete in maybe the next lesson. All right, so the subject of prefixes and suffixes, right? There's going to be, like I say, a few lessons that we are going to focus on, starting with identifying the base word or base words, prefixes and suffixes. So which means that we are going to identify the base word, see what the base word is, and then from the base word, we will then identify a prefix or and identify suffixes, right? And then also the next lesson will then be to determine the meaning of a word with pre, re, or miss. And usually when it comes to words like, let's say prefixes, you need to know what the meaning of these words are in order to know the prefix or in order to know the meaning of certain words. And then we're also going to use the prefixes, which is pre, re, and miss. And then we are going to determine the meaning of the word full or less. And then I think we're just going to stop by determine the meaning of the word with L, Y, or ness, N-E-double-S. All right, so we're going to the very first lesson, which is to identify base words, prefixes, and suffixes. No. All right. So base words, right? So we'll start with base words. So base words are words that can be combined with a prefix and with suffixes, right? And they can also be used on their own, right? So these base words, right? Firstly, it can stand on its own, right? It is a word that can stand on its own, but it is also a word that we can combine with a prefix and with the suffix, right? So with prefixes, meaning that this specific word that can stand on its own, we can maybe add a word or letters in front of that word, which we call a suffix, right? And it will change the meaning of the word. Then we can also add a few words or let's say a word or letters after or at the end of the base word, right? And then it will also create a new word, right? Or change the meaning or make or basically create a new meaning of the word, right? So base words are words that are combined or can be combined with prefixes and suffixes, right? And we will find out when we put the prefix and when we put the suffix. And they can also be used on their own, right? So if we look at the word, let's say unhelpful. So unhelpful, right? So unhelpful. this is our word that we are going to look at, right? Help. We look at the word help, right? I'm going to put help here. If we look at the word help, help is basically a word that can stand on its own, and we call this the base word. And why do we call it the base word? Because it's a word that can stand on its own. So it's the base word, right? Now, the word an. So the word an, it is our prefix, and our prefix is the word that we put in front of the base word. Then we have full, which is unhelpful, and full is our suffix, right? And the suffix goes after the base word, or let's say behind or at the back, right? So there we have unhelpful as an example. And if we break down that word unhelpful, right? And then we firstly start with creating or looking at the or identifying the base word, then we can say help is our base word, because help is a word that can stand on its own or we can use on its own, right? But then if we want to combine it with a prefix, then it means that you need to then add either letters or a word before the base word, right? And we call that a prefix or prefixes that is added. And if we add words after the base word, right, we call that a suffix, right? So it's either a word or it is letters that is added after or before the base word, right? And there it says, look at the word unhelpful. Help is the base word. And the prefix is un that goes before the base word. And the suffix is full, which goes after the base word. All right. If we also look at the words that we see here in the box, right? It says start with the word calmly, right? So calmly, calmly, right? If we break up that word calmly, then we can say the word that can stand on its own, right? It is calm. So calm is the word, is the base word that can stand on its own. And the word li is our suffix. It's our suffix, right? And li, which is a suffix, it goes after the base word. So calm is our base word that can stand on its own. And if we add li, which is ly, after the base word, we call that the suffix, right? And they say the suffix, which is ly, it goes after the base word, which means in a certain way. So if we put those two words together, which is calm plus li, right, then it means that together they make the word calmly, which means calm way or in a calm way. So li means certain way, and then we have calm, and then if we put those two words together, we can say it means in a calm way. You see, and in this case, you need to know the meaning of, for example, either the prefix or what the suffix mean in order for us to know what our, let's say, the meaning of the new word will be when we join or combined either the suffix and the base word, or the prefix and the base word, or if you combine all three, which is the base word, your prefix, and your suffix. All right. All right. So now it says, what is the base word in misspelt? Misspelt. We need to identify the base word in misspelt. So if we identify the base word in misspelled, then we will say it is spelled. Right? So spelled is the base word that can basically stand on its own, right? And that is without adding the word miss, because miss is a prefix. We need to identify the base word in breathless, right? So breathless, it is breath, right? And that is the base word that can stand on its own. If we add less, then it means that we are adding the suffix to that word to make it breathless, right? So here we have words, which is where we identify the base word as well as a prefix as well as a suffix. All right. So what is the prefix in redraw? We need to identify the prefix in redraw. So if we identify the prefix in redraw, it means that draw can stand on its own. So the prefix that was added to redraw is re. So re is the prefix that was added to draw, right? But now they just want us to identify the prefix within that sentence, which is re. Also in the second one, the prefix in restarted. So it is re because the base is started. And also here it says re, right? For rebuilds. Rebuilds. And the word that can stand on its own, which is the base word, is builds. All right, and remember, a base word is a word that can stand on its own, right? And it can be combined either with a prefix, which is words that you put before the base word, and it can be combined with a suffix, right, which we basically add after the base word, right? So if we join or combine, let's say the prefix, base word, as well as the suffix, right, and then it will basically create another word, and we made an example of unhelpful. All right. Let's go to the test. We need to identify the suffix in boneless. The suffix in boneless. If we identify the suffix in boneless, right, remember the suffix is the word that we add after the base word, right? So boneless. So if we identify the suffix within that sentence, and then we can say less is the suffix. Because bone is the word that stands on its own, which is the base word. What is the prefix in redraw? We need to identify the prefix, right, of redrawn. So we're going to go with re because draw is the base word. What is the base word in refold? Right? So base word is a word that can stand on its own, right? So refold. So which means that we're going to choose fold. And what is the suffix in calmly? Suffix in calmly. And we're going to choose ly because calm is our base word. And we just added an ly, right, to the base word. All right, let's go back. Ooh. Okay, so that is basically identifying the base words, prefixes, as well as suffixes, right? So now we're going to determine the meaning of the words with pre, re, or miss. I'm not sure why it just opens that. I want the full. All right, anyways, let's just go with this because I thought it was going to give us a more description. So we need to determine the meaning of the words pre, re, or miss, right? So what does misjudge mean, right? If we were to misjudge someone, right, then it means that you are judging someone incorrectly. So what does misjudge mean? It's where we judge someone incorrectly, right? What does re-seals mean? Right? So re means again. So re-seals, it's watching seals again or seals again. What does restarts mean? And start is basically to start again, right? Start again. So starts is the word that is on its own. So starts is on its own, but if we put those two words together, which is re and starts, then it means to start again. What does retie mean? Retie. A retie. So to retie is basically to tie again. Preview. Preview. So preview, right? It is where you view something before it is either put in cinemas or on TV, right? So that is a preview. And then what does reseals mean? Reseals. So seals is of course a word that can stand on its own, which is the base word, and re is over here, which is the prefix, right? But that word reseals means that we will seal again. All right, let's do a little test on prefixes and suffixes. It says you need to determine the meaning of a word with pre, re, or miss, right? So what does pre-cooked mean? Pre-cooked. Is it to cook again? Or you've cooked before? This is now pre-cook. All right, so if you pre-cook something, then it means that you've cooked before, right? So not again. So pre-cook is to cook before. What does reused mean? Reused. To reuse something, right? It is to use it again. So it does not mean use poorly. It just means that we use it again, and that is reuse. Retie. Retie. What does retie mean? Is it to tie before or tie again? All right, so retie is to tie again. So tying again. So what does pre-mixed mean? Pre-mixed. So mixed is a word that stands on its own, but pre-mixed. So pre-mixed, right? It means we have mixed it before, because pre means before. So mixed it before. If we wanted to say mix it again, we would have said remix. But yeah, we say pre-mix, which is mixed before. And then what does pre-wash mean? So pre-wash, does it mean wash incorrectly or wash before? Pre-wash. If we pre-wash, right, then we can say we wash before, because pre means before. All right, so now we're going back. So those were words where we determined the meaning of the word with pre, re, and miss. Now we're going to use the prefixes, which is pre, read, and miss. All right. We need to complete the sentence with the best prefix. Prefix. After he had an idea, Tim often thinks it. We need to choose the correct word. So we can then say Tim often rethinks it. So rethink. So after he has an idea, Tim often rethinks it, right? So which means that Tim sits with an idea, but he needs to now first rethink. Rethink, is it valid? Does it make sense? And so on. Complete the sentence with the best prefix. The police asked to park in a different spot, right? So if they ask you to basically park again, especially if it's a different spot, then it means that you already parked, but you need to park in a different spot. So we're going to say the police asked you to re-park in a different spot, meaning to park again. Please. Oopsie. So please pre-wash the dishes before you put them in the sink, in the dishwasher. So before you put the dishes in the dishwasher, people or some people prefer to pre-wash it. It's like to first wash it or rinse it off before you put it in the dishwasher. And that is pre, which is before, right? So pre means before. So please pre-wash the dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. And like I said, pre means it's the same as saying either rinse the dishes or first give it a nice little wash before you put it in the dishwasher, right? So some people do that, other people just put the dirty dishes in the dishwasher, and the dishwasher will basically just clean everything. But in this case, pre-wash, it's to wash it before, or to rinse it before putting it in the dishwasher. All right. Right, so this is basically pre, which means before, re, which means again, right? So to redo something, it is where you are doing it again, right? To pre-wash something, it's to wash it before, right? All right. Mr. Alvarado, Mr. Alvarado builds old cars and makes them like new again, right? So if we hear the word again, then it means that we are going to choose the word he rebuilds old cars, right? So he builds it again. So Mr. Alvarado, he builds old cars again and makes them like new again. So the older cars he takes, builds it, gives it a nice polish, and then it looks new again, right? And then, yeah, are there really 12 crows, or did you miscount them, right? So we can use the word miscount, right? So miscount. So miscount, it's basically where it's like saying, did you forget about that one, right? That is miscount. And then we have the next one, right? Oh, and also when it comes to miss, the meaning of miss, remember we said the meaning of re means again, pre means before, and then miss, right? The miss, or let's say the meaning of the word miss, it means like wrong, right? It's almost like making like a kind of mistake. So, or just misreading it. You maybe made like, it's like wrong. You read it wrong or counted wrong or something. So in this case, are there really 12 crows? Or they're asking, did you count wrong? Did you miscount them? And then the last one, which is please take a minute to think your answer and try again. There we again have the word again, which means that we need to say rethink. It's like think about it again, right? So please take a minute to rethink your answer and try again, right? So think again. Maybe you have a different answer, maybe you have a different response, maybe you have a different opinion to what your initial one was. So rethink, right? Think again. And that is rethink. Think again. Try again, right? All right. So basically, we say re means again, miss means it's like wrong, and then we have pre, which means before. All right, so now we're going to our test. All right, so if we go to our test, right, it says we need to complete the sentence with the best prefix, right? Are there really 12 crows, or did you count them? Is it did you miscount them or recount them? So is it miscount them or recount them? It's like count them wrong or count them again, right? So which means that in the sentence, the correct or best prefix that we're going to choose is miscount, right? So it's like, are there really 12 crows, or did you count them wrong, for example? That is miscount. right? Because we did not count it again. All right, the police asked to park in a different spot, either to repark in a different spot or to pre-park in a different spot. So if they ask you to park in a different spot, then it means that you need to now repark. So you need to get in your car and park again. So that is repark. We're not pre-parking because we're not going to park before. If my shoe comes untied, tie it. Will you retie it, tie it again, or will you pre-tie it, which is tied before? So in this case, if it comes untied, knowing that it was tied at first, then we will retie it, meaning we will tie it again, right? And then lastly, after he has an idea, Tim often is misthinks it or rethinks it. Oh, this one is quite tricky, right? Because after he has an idea, right? So he has an idea. So Tim often misthinks it or do you rethink it? So you need to choose the best one. Do you misthink it or do you rethink it? All right. So let's use rather the word rethink. All right, so rethink, so which means that he's got an idea, but before he tells whatever his idea is, he thinks about it again, right? So he rethinks about his idea. Oh, sorry, we were here. All right, let's go to our test. Sorry, I apologize. Oh, we were done with the test. Sorry. So now we go back, right? So we finished with the test because I specifically said we're going to do the last one. Now we're going to the next one. So that was first using the prefixes pre, re, miss. And we say pre meaning before, re meaning again, and miss being wrong. And it's like in the previous lesson that we did, you need to determine the meaning of the word in order to create another meaning of another word, right? So meaning you need to know what pre, re, and miss means. So pre means before, re means again, and miss means wrong. So now we're going to determine the meaning of a word with full and less or less. Full or less or less. All right. So before we go to, they're only giving us sentences, right? What does useless mean? It's not a sentence, it's a question, right? So useless. If something is useless, right? If something is useless, then it means it is without uses, right? It's without uses, we cannot use it. The same with boneless, right? So less then means without. So less means without because it is without bones. It is boneless. Then we have joyful, right? And full means to be full of something, right? So joyful. And joyful means full of joy. So joyful means full of joy. And once again, this is also us determining what the meanings are of certain words, or they say certain suffixes or prefixes, right? And in this case, we are now focusing on the suffixes. And we said suffixes are words that you add after the base word, right? And the base words within the sentence, especially in the sentence within this word, which is useless, the base word is use. That is a word that can stand on its own. And in the suffix that is added to the base word is less or less, right? That means without. So useless, it is without uses. And the same with boneless, without bones. And joyful, right? Which means that it is full of joy. Painless, right? Painless. Remember, we said less, it means without, right? So the suffix less or less means without. So if something is painless, right, then it means that it is without pain, right? So painless is without pain. And then we have wireless, right? So wireless, right? It is without wires. And then, of course, we mentioned joyful, which is full of joy. So full means full of. So full of something. And in this case, it is joyful. So full of joy. All right, so we have harmful, right? If something is harmful, then it means that it is full of harm, right? So basically, what it's just us determining the meanings of the suffixes, and suffix being full and suffix being less. Full meaning full of, so full of something, and less meaning without, right? Let's go back. All right. So the last one that we are going to choose is to determine the meanings of the word ly or nes. So ly is like saying lee, right? So ly is like saying lee. And nes, no, and we don't say nes, we say nis, especially if you're going to add it to the base word. So we basically determined the meaning of the word full, which is full of, as well as less, which is without. And now we're going to determine the meanings of the word li and nis. All right, so now nis, right? What does richness means? Richness. So nis means the state of being, right? So the state of being. So richness, it is the state of being rich. You have money, right? That is your good state that you are in. The fact that you have money, you are moneyed. Wellness, right? Wellness. And wellness is the state of being well. That is wellness, the state of being well. Then we have sureness, right? Sureness, it is the state of being sure. So basically, ness, N-E-S-S, means the state of being. Ness means the state of being, right? We did wellness. Let's go to brave. Then we have bravely, right? So bravely, right? It means in a brave way, right? So lee means it's almost like saying in a way or in some way, right? So what does bravely means? It means in a brave way. This is now the suffix ly or ly. Noisily, right? It is in a noisy way, right? And we said wellness, it's the state of being well. Then we have poorly. So what does poorly mean? So poorly is in a poor way. Remember we said li means in some way or in some sort of way, right? And ness means the state of being. So poorly means in a poor way, whether it is financially being poor, or maybe something that is not in a good state, right? And then we have slowness, right? It is the state of being slow, right? So slowness, this person is in a state of being slow. And then we have warmly, which is in a warm way, right? So warmly in a warm way can either mean the way somebody says something, right? So they're saying it in a warm way, right? Calm way, in a nice way, right? All right, let's go to our test. So what does ripeness mean? Ripeness. And this is where we have to determine what the meaning of either li means or nis means in order for us to know what the meaning of the word is. So ripeness. Is ripeness the state of being ripe or in a ripe way? All right, so if we choose the word ripeness, then we can say ripeness is the state of being ripe, because ness means the state of or the state of being. Freely. So what does freely mean? And we can say freely is freely the state of being free or in a free way. Freely. So what does freely mean? So the word li means in, let's say, in a way. So which means that we will say freely is in a free way. Then we have blindness. What does blindness mean? So blindness, is it in a blind way or the state of being blind? This is now blindness. So with blindness, we can then say blindness is the state of being blind. And then we have slowness, right? And then slowness means either the state of being slow or in a slow way. So with slowness, we can then say it is the state of being slow. All right, so that is basically the end of prefixes, or let's say our chapter of prefixes and suffixes. And we went over quite a few lessons, right, where we identified the base words, which is a word that can stand on its own. And then we identified prefixes and suffixes. And we said with the base word, you can either combine the prefix and the suffix by either adding the prefix in front of the base word and the suffix like at the end of the base word, right? And then we had to determine the meanings of certain prefixes as well as certain suffixes. And we said that in order for you to know what the meaning are of certain words, it is best to know the meaning of either the prefix or the suffix, or in order to recreate the, let's say, the meaning or recreate the meaning of a specific word. All right, so that is the end of our lesson on prefixes and suffixes. You should have an amazing evening further. Goodbye.